Welcome back to the Explainer. Today we're strapping on our hiking boots, grabbing our binoculars, and venturing into a truly extraordinary habitat. We're going to observe a fascinating, majestic, and deeply, deeply troubled ecosystem. We are examining the natural and honestly supernatural world of entities born of pure, unmitigated chaos. But, as we'll discover, existing as a terrifying force of destruction actually comes with a surprising amount of, psychological baggage.
Look, in a completely random universe, you'd think the monsters, the ghouls, and the mechanized terrors have it pretty easy, right? They just show up, wreak some havoc, call it a day. Simple. But no. Actually, scratch that. Have you ever wondered if the forces of cosmic chaos suffer from imposter syndrome? Because as it turns out, even the most terrifying entities in existence are having bizarre, completely debilitating existential crises.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to Inherent Chaos, a bestiary of existential dread. We're going to profile these fantastical creatures to understand their very specific and honestly hilarious brands of angst. Moving right along to our first case study, digital pirates and insignificance. Now, you'd think a pirate captain traversing fiery dimensions would be totally focused on plundering, swashbuckling, or, avoiding a horrifying eternity in Davy Jones' pixelated locker. But nope. Our source text reveals a pirate who is terribly stressed about his metrics. He asks, with this tragic vulnerability, if he's barely a footnote. He wonders if he's even remembered beyond the initial few seconds after his knowledge was imparted to someone in a dream weeks later. I mean, think about the sheer comedy of this. You have a supernatural pirate captain, literally trapped in a realm of flames, having a full-blown meltdown because he feels like a forgotten line of code in a binary system of chaos. He even questions if he ever biologically mattered in life, or if his whole existence is just virtuality pointing toward non-existent actualities. Rough stuff.
So the crucial point here is this insanely depressing reality check. He is a swashbuckler dealing with digital irrelevance and cognitive decline. He points out that even the fiery remnants of his own dementia seem to utter more words than he does. He uses this beautiful, tragic analogy. If a drop of water falls from the middle of a cliff or flails onto a dry rock, what can it even do? He's trapped. He's stuck outside the mortal coil, basically complaining that he wasn't given enough screen time in someone else's subconscious.
Well, if the pirate represents the crisis of the individual ego, let's scale things up a bit with our next section. Droids, skeletons, and society.
Because it turns out, the monsters under the bed, they're taking notes on our social structures. Just listen to this absolute menace. The melee droid, a metallic entity fully geared up for wholesale demolition, tells us this. It is, delightfully, contradicting individual purpose using societal measures. I mean, it sounds completely chilling. It sounds like the manifesto of some unstoppable, hyper-intelligent conqueror, right? But then, the text immediately undercuts this melodramatic villainy. How exactly does the melee droid subtly devastate futures? By using its sword and shield to orchestrate what it calls quotidian affairs. Yes, the droid's ultimate psychological weapon of mass devastation is literally just boredom. It doesn't want to mercilessly dispatch you, no, it wants to trap you in a humdrum mental state. It wants to waste your time so thoroughly that your future is completely wrecked, precisely because it contradicts what society expects of you. Guys, it's a bureaucratic robot pretending to be a gladiator.
Now, what's really interesting when we compare the sheer absurdity of these threats side by side is just how hilarious it gets. On one hand, you've got the melee droid brandishing a sword and shield, but its actual goal is just to make you waste a random Tuesday afternoon. And on the other hand, we have Skeleton Warrior B. This guy walks around with a gruesome skull installed on his axe like it's a piece of software. You'd think his threat is physical violence, right? But no, the skeleton's actual threat is giving you a depressing lecture on semiotics. He complains that symbols, including language itself, are completely hollow shells. He notes that in society, substance and even life itself are readily sacrificed for theatrical lies. He actually calls societal indifference a form of dark matter. He is literally a walking, rattling sociology professor who believes we're all just hopelessly navigating a chaotic universe, completely unable to prepare for the future. All right, leaving the metallic and the skeletal behind, let's transition to some biological anomalies in our next chapter, mythical apes and primate absurdity.
See, the natural world isn't safe from existential dread either. Take the Yeti.
The Yeti's crisis is entirely based on a total lack of object permanence. It genuinely isn't sure if it exists outside of gossip. The Yeti points out that people climb icy mountains for basically no reason, get totally exhausted, their high-altitude neurochemicals deplete, and their minds start playing tricks on them. The Yeti describes itself as a monad, a being separated in time and space, perhaps an immortal Gigantopithecus, but it laments that it might just be the equivalent of an Icarus-like virtual reality, a projection of the empty nothingness inside the climbers themselves. It's a legendary monster sadly asking, "Am I not cute?" while seriously wondering if it's literally just a hallucination brought on by frostbite. You can't make this stuff up.
And if a cryptid having an identity crisis wasn't enough for you, meet Akari. Akari is a moon bear. But not just any moon bear. Oh no. Akari is a cuddly, self-proclaimed anthropologist analyzing primate behavioral evolution. Just imagine a fuzzy bear stopping you in the woods to critique the structural inefficiencies of your genetic lineage. Let's move along and see how this builds. Akari notes that young moon bears naturally seek refuge in trees to avoid bigger, more brutal bears. That's just simple, practical evolution. But then Akari looks at us primates, the hominidae. Akari finds it absolutely bizarre that humans, facing the unmitigated randomness of the universe, decided to create massive societal structures. According to a moon bear, our urban jungle is a hellish artificiality. We didn't evolve to climb trees to escape. Instead, we actively chose to solidify and calcify the universe's inherent chaos into everyday human society. We literally brought the netherworld onto the surface, and this moon bear is politely but firmly judging us for it.
Which brings us to the grand climax of our explainer, the thermodynamics of luck.
So if the pirates, the droids, and the bears are all just navigating the chaos, what's the underlying rule governing the whole shebang? For that, we turn to the snow monster, who delivers the ultimate, chilling truth about existence. Out in the bleakness of forsaken space, it is all a frigid frontier. It's heavy, right? The snow monster views all biological life as a highly vulnerable, terrifyingly temporary state. Life prefers an equilibrium, a nice, warm realm. But the monster reminds us that the cold is always lurking, sneaking in like a slithering snake, just waiting to plunge you into an abyss of hallucination and everlasting oblivion.
And this brilliantly illustrates the central conflict here. We envelop ourselves in a cozy coating of localized, superficial warmth. We build our societies, we climb our mountains, we sail our digital seas. But just beyond that tiny, illusory pocket of heat is the frigid frontier of forsaken space. The universe is a zero-sum system. It's a thermodynamic bind, where if you have nothing, you are simply annihilated by the cold. There's no Gordian knot to cut through here. There is only the vast, indifferent, freezing dark.
So, how do you actually survive this inherent chaos? Well, according to the snow monster, it is absolutely not about skill. It's not about preparation. Remember, the skeleton already told us that was completely useless anyway. The only way to survive is by hoarding the rarest, most inaccessible currency in existence, exponentiating luck. Not just sudden, flash-in-the-pan luck, but a mathematical anomaly of fortune that hides behind a door to another life, or maybe another world entirely. In a zero-sum universe that literally shows no mercy, you have to rely on a desperate existential dice roll just to avoid being frozen solid.
We've explored the absurd anxieties of ghost pirates, the bureaucratic boredom of killer droids, the imposter syndrome of the Yeti, and the chilling thermodynamics of the snow monster. They all point to one undeniable reality about the inherent chaos around us. So I leave you with this to ponder tonight. As you sit there in your superficial pocket of localized warmth, in a completely zero-sum universe, do you have enough exponentiating luck? Thank you for watching this explainer, and I'll see you next time.